will is valid no matter how a man dies. Perry Mason nodded his head, wordlessly. Suppose, said Cartwright, a man dies on the gallows or in the electric chair. You know, suppose he's executed for murder. Then what happens to his will? It makes no difference how a man dies. His will is not affected, Mason said. How many witnesses do I need to a will? 2 witnesses under certain circumstances, Mason said, and none under others. How do you mean? I mean that if a will is drawn up in typewriting and you sign it, there must be 2 witnesses to your signature. But in this state, if a will is written entirely in your handwriting, including date and signature, and there is no other writing or printing on the sheet of paper save your own handwriting, it does not need to have any witnesses to the signature. Such a will is valid and binding. Arthur Cartright sighed, and his sigh seemed to be one of relief. When he spoke, his voice was more quiet, less jerky. Well, he said, that seems to clear that point up. To whom did you want your property to go? Asked Perry Mason. To Mrs. Clinton Foley, living at 4889 Milpas Drive. Perry Mason raised his eyebrows. A neighbor? He asked. A neighbor, said Cartwright, in the tone of voice of one who wishes to discourage comment. Very well, said Perry Mason, and then added, Remember, Cartwright, you're talking to a lawyer. Don't have secrets from your lawyer. Tell me the truth. I won't betray your confidences. Well, Cartwright said impatiently, I'm telling you everything, ain't I? Perry Mason's eyes and voice were both serene. I don't know, he said. This was something that I was telling you. Now go ahead and tell me about your will. That's all of it. What do you mean? I mean just that. The property all goes to Mrs. Clinton Foley, every bit of it. Perry Mason put the pen back in its receptacle, and the fingers of his right hand made little drumming noises on the top of the desk. A wary appraisal was evident in his glance. Well then, he said, let's hear about the dog. The dog howls, said Cartwright. Perry Mason's nod was sympathetic. He howls mostly at night, Cartwright said, but sometimes during the day. It's driving me crazy. I can't stand that continual howling. You know a dog howls when there's a death due to occur in the neighborhood. Where is the dog? Asked Mason. In the house next door. You mean, asked Perry Mason, that the house where Mrs. Clinton Foley lives is on one side of you, and the house that has the howling dog is on the other side? No, said Cartwright. I mean that the howling dog is in Clinton Foley's house. I see, Mason remarked. Suppose you tell me all about it, Cartwright. Cartwright pinched out the end of the cigarette, got to his feet, walked rapidly to the window, stared out with unseeing eyes, then turned and paced back toward the lawyer. Look here, he said. There's one more question about the will. Yes, asked Mason. Suppose Mrs. Clinton Foley really shouldn't be Mrs. Clinton Foley. How do you mean? Mason inquired. Suppose that she's living with Clinton Foley as his wife but isn't married to him. That wouldn't make any difference, Mason said slowly. If you described her in the will as Mrs. Clinton Foley, the woman who is at present living with Clinton Foley at 4889 Milpas Drive as his wife. In other words, the testator has a right to leave property to whom he wishes. Words of description in a will are valuable only so far as they explain the intention of the testator. For instance, there have been many occasions when men have died willing property to their wives, and it has turned out they were not legally married. There have been cases where men have left property to their sons when it has turned out that the person was not really his son. I don't care about all that stuff, said Cartwright irritably. I'm just asking you about this one particular case. It wouldn't make any difference? It wouldn't make any difference, Mason said. Well then, said Cartwright, his eyes suddenly cunning. Suppose that there should be a real Mrs. Clinton Foley. What I mean is, suppose Clinton Foley had been legally married and had never been legally divorced, and I should leave the property to Mrs. Clinton Foley. Perry Mason's tone of voice was that of one soothing groundless fears. I have explained to you, he said, that the intention of the testator governs. If you leave your property to the woman who is now residing at that address as the wife of Clinton Foley, it is all that is necessary. But do I